Yeah, I guess just that thing where, through that interview with Ian, I do think we had largely similar opinions to what a lot of the other, content creators and community had to think of it, which I think was broad disappointment, where there was really nothing that was new and exciting, and a lot of what was said was just disappointing. Like the Conduit energy thing, it's like, yeah, no shit, it's imperfect.
Yeah.
And it was like even finding out from Mike's follow-up video that Blizzard actually wanted to address Conduit energy in that interview, and I'm like, hang on, boys. You wanted to address Conduit energy. You basically had nothing meaningful to say about it, other than, it's basically okay, but we're going to tweak it a bit. Like, do you live in the same world as the people playing your game? And yeah, I guess just like my willingness to be a lot more raw about this stuff is just increasing and increasing and increasing. As from how I perceive it, they have shown just they're out of touch and out of touch and out of touch and out of touch. It's just wild. It's like Torghast is probably not going to be a great feature until the final patch of this expansion, which is going to be after people have paid 100 and maybe 120 pounds plus the full box price of admission for this expansion before that team can actually get Torghast to be good. And it's like, in our job, there is a base level of being pro-consumer and advocating for, what's best for customers.
Yeah.
Where that's like just not acceptable. If like the new Call of Duty game had a big pillar of its gameplay be borked for an entire year.
Yeah.
I mean, goddamn, you wouldn't be okay with that. So it's just like, why are Blizzard okay with that? Why are they okay to consistently say, oh, it's not a problem with our system, it's just balancing of an element controlled by that system?
Yeah.
Where we're just, then like, yeah, well, if we could swap those soul binds, then we wouldn't even have to worry about the balance of your system because we'd have control over it. Therefore, it wouldn't be a problem. But it's like, Blizzard's got to have the control. So it's just that thing where, I mean, at least based on the sort of the video that he published yesterday, like it seemed like Mike was a bit down over the whole thing. We've certainly both been down about it. Asmongold's reaction was not particularly pleased. He had his follow-up video on the Zakrar channel of, also not being particularly happy about it. I've seen, even people who are usually quite, happy with what the WoW team does look at the new Torghast and be a bit puzzled. At how they've taken all of this feedback and then moved it in that direction, deciding that these oddly punitive and never fun affixes are actually what Torghast needs. Where it's like anybody who's actually played the game and is vaguely, has their finger to the pulse of the player base, wouldn't do that. They wouldn't do that.
Nope.
It just does make me feel like I don't know. I have to assume they play the game, but they sure as hell can't be playing it in a way where we play it, or they're being misled by something, or maybe they're seeing numbers, player engagement numbers, and maybe they're thinking that means something. But it's like, if you set up the numbers to be biased in a certain direction, then well, the quality of the numbers you get out of that system is not worth anything.
Yeah,
right?
what gets measured gets managed.
Well, yeah, exactly. Oh, I feel like that and Keep It Simple Stupid just need to be like branded onto every wall in the Blizzard office, because it seems like they get extremely misled on on things like that. And it's just so depressing because you log in and whenever you raid, you see the potential of this game. And, we sort of know what this game's potential is from the past. They've delivered the Warlock Greenfire. Like, why can they not do something as good as Mists of Pandaria again?
That's what I was actually going to say. Mists of Pandaria is basically the perfect blend between modern World of Warcraft design combat-wise and the older stuff, because mobs are hard enough that you had to think about your pulls as you do in Classic when you're, you can't just take 7 mobs at once. But in Mist, you had a lot more tools, a lot more actual buttons. So they managed to find a way where you could actually, you could use your available skills, which is a lot wider than back in the day. But also things still felt as dangerous in the Timeless Isle specifically.
Yeah.
And I feel like Mist is basically, instead of looking earlier, they should basically, especially instead of looking at Legion, they should look at Mists and go, our goal is instead of let's make Legion 2, it should be let's make Mists 2.
Yeah.
In most ways, not every way, and just see how far they can get back there.
Well, as we've pretty much consistently said for years now, the thing with Blizzard is they learned all of the wrong lessons from Legion.
Yeah.
And it's the sort of thing where even in Legion, like near the start, we all had the same criticisms, you know, and they were only things addressed in very, very later on patches of Legion. I think we told them that stuff during Legion Alpha and Beta, and it's just weird. It seems like they do these alphas and these betas and these public test realms, but they're basically completely against listening to people. And it's like, I don't want to just sit here and say that they have a contempt for their players or a contempt for content creators. But it's like, from the rumblings that I heard of the private class feedback forum and a few other things, and then just their actions in developing this game and the content that they make, I'm just left thinking, like, I don't know, it's like these guys don't have our best interests at heart. Like, they're not thinking about the player experience. And that feels really weird to say, because why the hell else would they get involved in working in game development, if not to create that great experience for players?
That's what I think the problem is.
It just confuses me. I'm actually baffled. I'm baffled at what goes on with the WoW development team. And I feel like, versus other games that I know of, they are some of the most out of touch and confusing in what they do.
Yeah, no,
I don't get it.
If anyone wants to look at a development team and see them, see what, to be fair, this is completely and utterly, what's the term? Apples and oranges. Completely apples and oranges, but every time I think of a game being developed actively, correctly, I think of Rogue Legacy 2. Because it's an indie game, but it's just, every single time any update comes to them, it is literally they've taken every community complaint and solved it in some capacity, or if not solved it directly, they've like stepped aside, looked at like a root problem, or give them something to counteract it.
Well, for World of Warcraft, the community's the problem.
Yeah,
like, it's evidently that team thinks that we are the problem.
Players aren't doing what we want. How do we make them do what we want? Not how do we give people the most bang for their buck, or the most fun time, or the best experience. It never seems to be that way.
It's like, remember Ghostcrawler? He made his post about how at Blizzard, the developers are the rock stars.
Yeah.
At Riot, we kind of listened to them, or whatever it was in that post. It feels like that. It feels like they do not have... they are not a player-first company.
That's gameplay first, not player first.
And their idea of gameplay, I think, is getting a bit screwy sometimes.
Yeah, I feel like the problem could maybe be that step from Blizzard developers are the rock stars. Bring that to an kind of the more modern realm, and also a new wave of developers that are brought up like that without the kind of suffering and actually building stuff that those before them had to do. I think it might be that kind of thing where they aren't just, how often do Blizzard developers sit down with a notebook and go through forums and go through Reddit, but not on the defensive, not with the intent of going, I'm going to see what toxicity.
They must feel like a special persecuted group of people.
Yeah.
It's like the lack of openness.
Yeah.
The lack of, whatever it would require to actually really empathize with people's concerns.
Yeah.
Because most of this is like, we understand your concerns, but we have ran the numbers and we believe they are incorrect. We are doing this.
Yeah.
And
it's weird.
Yeah, it's that weird thing of like, every time you roll Ian out to do an interview with Preach, it leads to the community being like, what the hell does the WoW team even think? This is bonkers. All that stuff. Yeah. We are happy with covenants. Like, in Blizzard, are they literally not allowed to say that something didn't go particularly well? Because how can you say you're happy with covenants whenever the covenant numbers are the way they are?
98% affliction warlock?
Yeah. Why did you design other warlock abilities for other covenants?
Yeah.
Why bother? Would it surely not have been more fun to just give players, like, you get, there's 4 new covenant themed abilities, choose one. That's that.
Yeah.
I mean, imagine being a hunter and being able to use the glaive thing from Maldraxxus when you'd want to, or the wild call or wild spirits from Nightfame whenever you want to, and change them around, get some cool new abilities for your character. But no, they've designed Flayed Shot and the Chakram thing, the glaive, whatever it's called,
Death Chakrams, yeah.
and the Kyrian see through the things. But you never get to play those.
Yeah.
Like, why do they do it that way? Like, how do they see those goblins as a success? What sort of casual player is sitting there being like, oh, Blizzard, thank you. I'm glad that you've locked off player power in this way where, because I want to do this campaign, I can't get that.
Yeah.
Like, when is that even fun? Like, it's that thing where you constantly look at Blizzard's decision, you're like, who benefits? And it was like what Dakor said in it was this research doc for Conduit Energy for this week's news. It's like, who benefits from that? Because I don't notice Conduit Energy, and the only people who do notice it don't benefit from it. Yeah. It just punishes them. So it's not making life any better for me as just a sort of more casual end player, and all it's doing is punishing the top end people. So in that case, why? Like, what is your cost benefit analysis of this? Where does the brain come in and do a think and come up with some reasonable result? What's going on? You know, it almost feels to me like they all went to work from home, and because they lost their water cooler chat, just a whole bunch of things have been unfiltered and have hit the game, and that's why it's so baffling. Which is so sad, because with Shadowlands they said all the right things leading up to it.
They did, yep.
But I didn't really make good on that much of it.